working on replacing the fixtures in my bathtub with an oil rubbed bronze finish. And next up on my list of projects is to replace the overflow plate. To complete this project, you're going to need an overflow plate and a Phillips screwdriver. You may also need a few additional tools to finish this project. It all depends on what you encounter once you take off that overflow plate. And I'll describe each of these in detail as I go throughout the video. Alright, so let's get started. Take your Phillips head screwdriver and twist off the screw that is holding that overflow plate in position. It looks pretty gross under there. My faceplate and gasket are not in that great a shape, so I'm just gonna go ahead and replace everything. I'm gonna unscrew the two screws that are holding the bracket in place. You want to be careful not to scratch your bathtub when you're taking off the bracket, so unscrew the screw with one hand and hold the bracket in place with the other just so that it doesn't spin and scratch anything. There should be a black rubber ring inside of your bathtub that's around your overflow pipe. And basically this gasket creates a watertight seal. It stops any water from actually leaking behind the wall of your bathtub. Mine's in pretty bad shape. I should not be able to pull this thing apart so easily. So I'm going to remove the gasket and replace it with a new one. The overflow pipe does actually have a little bit of give. If you push on it, you should be able to move it back and forth and maybe even a little bit left and right inside of that drain hole. So push it around as needed, grab some pokey objects like your Phillips head screwdriver or maybe even some needle nose pliers and just do your best to get that thing out of there without hurting your bathtub. Next, I'm going to take some soapy water and a toothbrush and scrub all that grime off of the bathtub. Next, it's time to put the new gasket in place. If you turn the gasket on its side, you'll notice that one side is a little thicker than the other. It's beveled for a reason. Most bathtub walls slant inward a little bit as you move down towards the drain, and so the thinner side should be facing up and the thicker side should be facing down as you put this gasket into position. I'm not gonna lie. This is going to be very frustrating. Just take your time, be patient, and keep working it in there one little bit at a time. I think it helps a little bit if you don't try to shove the whole thing in there at once. Just put in a section and then work your way around the gasket as you go. I also think it's a little helpful if you use a pokey object like your Phillips head screwdriver to help you get it into place, but you want to be really careful that you don't actually poke holes in the gasket because remember, this thing is forming your watertight seal. Good luck. The struggle is definitely real, but you can do this. Get after it. And done. Finally. Now let's put on that new pretty overflow plate. Your kit should come with a new bracket. I'm going to use the new one just because my old one looked pretty cruddy. However, the kit only comes with one screw, and so in order to get this new bracket in place, I'm going to have to reuse the two screws from the old bracket. When you're tightening these screws, keep in mind that the bracket doesn't necessarily have to be level. That's not a problem if it isn't. Make sure though that it is evenly spaced across the surface of the tub. So just make sure that you've got sufficient amount of bracket on the left and the right side of the tub. And then also remember, as you tighten the screws down, you're literally pulling that overflow pipe forward up against the back of the tub. You're squishing the gasket in between the two, and that's creating that watertight seal. Now it's time to screw on the new overflow plate. If you turn the plate around, you'll notice that there's a gap that runs about halfway across the circumference of the plate. And this is your drain hole. You want to make sure that this gap is pointed downward when you screw it onto the bracket. The one screw that comes with the new bracket is actually going to be the one that attaches the overflow plate to the bracket. It'll screw right into the center. In order to finish tightening this up, I'm going to rotate the plate so that the drain is at the bottom. I'm going to put my fingers on each of the starting points of the gap just so that I can keep track of how level the plate is. And then I'm just going to hold the plate in one hand and tighten it up with my screwdriver in the other. Be careful not to over tighten this screw. If you do, it's just going to push right into the surface of your bathtub and it'll probably leave marks that you really don't want. So just be careful. Check out that new pretty overflow plate. This project is almost done, and in fact this next step is completely optional, so if you don't feel like doing it, then consider yourself finished. But the spout is right above the overflow plate. This just creates a situation where I always feel most comfortable if I seal the top of that overflow plate just to protect it from any water that's coming from the spout. So the last thing that I'm going to do is take some caulk and I'm going to seal just the top of the overflow plate. I'm using a clear caulk and running a bead across the top of the plate. Then I'm going to run my finger along the caulk to smooth it out. Use a paper towel to wipe off your finger as you go. And to finish up, take a damp sponge and run it across the surface of the plate just to get any excess caulk off of it. And there you have it, the new overflow plate is attached. If you found this video helpful, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to my channel.